the Fynbos is critical for the city of Cape Town, which in 2018 was facing a disaster. After 3 years of drought, it was days away from zero water.
Well, 2018, there was a very real risk of the city potentially running out of water.
Councillor Limburg was the official in charge of preparing for this situation.
The city did have to take very tough decisions during the height of the drought, and this is why we declared a local disaster.
It didn't matter where you lived, beachside suburbs or townships. Everyone was affected.
There was risk of greater health issues around sanitation particularly, and a potential risk of lawlessness and violence.
To conserve water, everyone was restricted to 13 gallons per day.
When water crisis last year came here, I was struggling because I depend to this water.
Ntombi Nabisi runs a car washing business in the Kilecha township.
No food in the house that time. I'm worrying about my future because if I don't have that car wash, I don't have nothing.
Water restrictions were threatening livelihoods in a country where 50% of people live in extreme poverty. It was potentially devastating. Cape Town gets all its water from the Fynbos ecosystem in the mountains that surround the city. And the Fynbos itself can cope with intermittent rainfall, because most of its moisture comes from regular coastal fog. When cold air from the ocean condenses over the warm land. It's worked like this for millions of years. But in this finely tuned landscape, there are invasive species upsetting the balance. Alien plants.
Oh, here's a small pine. It's always good to get them when they're still this size because it's easy to hand pull them. So slow pull and out there it is. So it shows quite a big root system already, even though it's this pine is not even yet a year old.
Louise Stafford, water director at the Nature Conservancy, is an expert on the ecosystem here.
Most of the invasive species that we find in the watersheds of the Cape Town region come from Europe and Australia.
The pine tree was introduced 200 years ago for its timber.
In comparison to fynbos, the pine trees are huge trees with deep taproot systems, and they actually use more water than the native species. And if you look at the system in Cape Town, about 70% of the watershed upon which Cape Town depends for its water is invaded by alien plants. The region is losing 55.5 billion litres of water every year as a result of alien plants in the catchments. And it equates to about 2 months' water supply just for the city of Cape Town itself.
The war against these aliens is on. A specially trained team is taken to the most inaccessible places.
Come on, guys. We're gonna chop down some trees at the bottom here.
Cedric November and Po Malawu are part of the team.
I cut in because this palm tree was drinking 200 liters in the day water.
I would say it's very important because by cutting down these trees that are taking such much water from our country and our land, it's actually saving lives.
Each pine tree can drink up to 9 gallons of water a day. Almost as much as people were allowed during the crisis. It's estimated that these clearing efforts so far have saved over 6.5 million gallons of water.